If Palestine were a cake, Israel took two-thirds of it, and what is left is literally crumbs, not actually a piece. Okay, that's better. You're right. Mearsheimer on Lex, he spat some facts. Oh, nice. Man, for all of his faults, Lex Fridman does unironically have a very interesting set of people on his interviews on a show.
We have a disaster. And what happened on October 7th is a disaster. One of the first things that happens is that people begin to ask the question, how did this happen? Right? What's the root cause of this problem? This is a disaster. We have to understand what caused it so that we can work to make sure it doesn't happen again. So we can work to shut it down.
Weren't you supposed to go there? Yeah, Lex asked to interview me a long time ago, and I never ended up doing it because, like, I just wouldn't go where he is. Like, I didn't feel it. Kaya, come here. Hello, baby. How do you eat that much food in one sitting? I'm a big boy.
Then make sure it doesn't happen again. Mm-hmm. But once you start talking about the root causes, right, you end up talking about how Israel was created, right? And that means telling a story that is not pretty about how the Zionists conquered Palestine. And number two, it means talking about the occupation, right? It's not like Hamas attacked on October 7th because there were just a bunch of anti-Semites who hated Jews and wanted to kill Jews. This is not, Nazi Germany, right? This is directly related to the occupation and to what.
To be fair, like, if you're doing realpolitik, as Mearsheimer does, there is, like, it's whether or not the things that people are mentioning are real that's important. Because everybody has a perspective, right? It's not like Nazi Germany was just simply saying, like, oh, we hate Jews because they're Jews and, like, we have to kill them. They also had a reason, right? But those reasons were completely ridiculous. They were made up. That's the difference here. Right? Like, everybody has a justification. If you don't understand that, you can't understand any kind of historical analysis. Because that's a bad take? No, it's not. It's not a bad take at all. It's not even a remotely bad take. What do you mean that's a bad take? You think, first of all, it is a good take, or it's not even a good take. It's not even a good take or a bad take. It's just a real take. Okay? What do I mean by this? If you don't understand that, if you think it was just like, it was pure evil, the actions of the Nazi government were pure evil, right? But if you don't understand that, like, there was justifications along the way for why they were reaching from point A to point B, why they purged the socialists first, why they started putting Jews in concentration camps, in ghettos, right? Then you won't understand how we got to the genocide. Okay? That's the problem. A lot of people do not want to do accurate historical assessment, and they think in terms of good and bad. This benefits American foreign policy greatly. Our enemies are evil. We're the good guys. But what you don't realize in that situation is that evil people, like the Nazis, okay, who engage in evil acts, still have to sell that. They still have to present that to their own population of voters, to their own fucking people that are going to make up the ranks of their army, people that are going to engage in these gross, atrocious acts of violence, unjustifiable acts of violence. Now, it's important to recognize every step of the way, and this is why Holocaust scholars have studied this matter greatly, right? Because the principle behind never again is so that you understand exactly every step of the way what the Nazis said to justify their actions, so that we have some signs if it happens again. and stop it dead in its tracks before it gets to that point. And on that front, it's not easy to... I don't think it's correct to simply say, like, the Nazis are bad and they enjoyed it and they were doing it and because they were evil and they gave no justifications for it. No, of course they did. The thing is, those justifications were incorrect. We know that they were incorrect. It was just completely frivolous. They wanted an outgroup. They wanted someone that they could point to and say is bad. And they used the classic outgroup, Jewish people. It's just been around as the evil enemy for a very long time. They did enjoy it. Yes, they did. But that's not what I'm talking about, okay? What I'm mentioning here is how they sold it. And you have to understand how they sold it because governments that are currently engaging in atrocities themselves also sell those atrocities with justifications. And what you have to do is look through cut through the propaganda and see whether those atrocities and the actions that they're engaging in are justifiable or not. Okay? If they're correct or not. And in many instances, the state that is engaging in violent acts will, of course, always try to justify it, but they will never, their justifications will not meet the standard of necessity and permissibility. So, yeah, here, the Secretary of Antifa is correct. The first camps were made to imprison suspected terrorists, or other words for social disruptors. Everything was sold as necessary actions to protect the Volk, the in-group, the folk. Now, why is that important? Why is that important to understand? Because there is something that I've talked about within Israel, within Israeli culture, as a matter of fact, that looks to the victims of the Holocaust as weak, right? This has a lot to do with Zionism and the jingoistic sentiment expressed within Zionism that we must be strong, a nation of Jews that will be strong, that will never allow atrocities to happen to us again. And that's why there is this concept that like Holocaust survivors are somehow weak. Okay? Like they were weak. They were they didn't fight back, which is not correct, by the way. They did fight back. Okay? They did. And in other circumstances, the reasons as to why they didn't fight back is because it was sold to them not as they're going to death camps, but instead as though they are going to a concentration camp or a labor camp where they will not be executed. Okay? That is important to understand. It's important to understand all aspects of these this atrocity. Like it happened gradually. Why am I saying this? It happened gradually. Just like all matter of violence happens gradually. It doesn't just start overnight. You don't go, all right, I turned on the murder machine. You know, they arrived at the final solution. They didn't reach there on day one. Okay? It's a machine of death and destruction that is well-oiled and lies every step of the way for its sustainability to ensure that you are only increasing the mechanisms of violence slowly but surely and not with one big fucking wipe. Can't do that. You can't do the one big thing. You can't do the top of the hour ad break at once and then immediately draw ire from those who are watching who are not subscribed. You have to tell them over the course of many hours that if you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime. Yeah, even all the extermination camps weren't open at the same time. They were gradually open over a decade or so. The first exterminations took place in the backs of vans, trucks, cars that were rigged with gas. Adnan TTTK, thank you for the 10 gifted subs, and a 5 gifted subs earlier on as well. It's important to understand this, and it's important to recognize the death machine and how it operated. Because the principle behind never again and the principle behind like reading into the Holocaust or understanding genocides, the reason why there are genocide scholars is specifically to learn the telltale signs of an upcoming genocide and to stop it before it actually becomes a real full-blown genocide. Because there isn't like a magic number of deaths that you cross over. There's not like a threshold where that you cross over and then all of a sudden, well, I guess we're in a genocide. What the fuck? Like, it doesn't work that way. The entire purpose of why there is a field of study on the Holocaust or the field of study on genocides in general is so that we see the telltale signs and stop it before it becomes a thing. And when you understand that, when you understand fascist ideology or genocidal ideology and the steps that states will take and of course justify every step of the way, then you come to the heart of like how you arrive at exactly how Zionism has transformed itself into this incredibly right-wing fascist death cult. Okay? That's why you see the likes of Itamar Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, and many others in the Knesset saying the things that they do, and you go, what the fuck? You look at it from the outside, and you're like, how the fuck is this guy just openly saying this? Why is nobody going, dude, what the fuck? That's genocidal. Stop it. Why is nobody in Israel seeing this and going, oh my God, we have to overthrow the government? What the fuck is happening here? It's because the people of Israel have been sold a lie, okay? They have been lied to. They don't recognize it either. It's masked under a much more permissible agenda of national security. National security. We must do this because of national security. And then there's another force working there. White supremacist, anti-Arab, anti-Muslim forces at play that also create this cycle of racist, agitative propaganda that justifies the necessity for the security state to engage in such atrocious actions. They work hand in hand with one another. Then there's also the same like mythological framework. Judea and Samaria, Israel belonged to the Jews for thousands of years, but we were kicked away and cast aside and we had to go back. It's like, it has all of the perfect workings to create a fascist nationalist movement, which is what Zionism is. Anyway, let's hear what else Mearsheimer
what was going on inside of Gaza. And it's not in Israel's interest or the lobby's interest to have an open discourse about what the Israelis have been doing to the Palestinians since, I would say, roughly 1903, when the second Aliyah came to Israel, or came to what was then Palestine, right? We want to talk about that. And we don't want to talk about, from the lobby's point of view, the influence that the lobby has, right? It's better from the lobby's point of view if most Americans think that American support of Israel is just done for all the right moral and strategic reasons, not because of the lobby. And when John Mearsheimer and Steve Walt come along and say,
I think the dialectic is like state by state. States are real actors with their genuine perspectives that they hold on to and national security concerns. But ultimately, you go along with the... Actually, I don't know. I don't know why I'm saying this. I'm being super harsh over Mearsheimer, who is much better read than me. Maybe I'm not fully understanding what he's trying to say.
Right. It's better from the lobby's point of view if most Americans think that American support of Israel is just done for all the right moral and strategic reasons, not because of the lobby. And when John Mearsheimer and Steve Walt come along and say, you have to understand that this special relationship is...
I don't think it's the lobby. It's like talking about the NRA and thinking that America's support for guns and defense of guns comes from the NRA. That's not the case. No. Hasan Isabai says, the biggest reason why so many people in the West don't consider Israel Palestine a genocide akin to the Holocaust, because it's not akin to the Holocaust yet. it can be maybe in the future, but it's not yet, is that people aren't just being outwardly psychotic as Hitler. Hitler wrote a whole ass book about killing the Jews and did speeches about ridding Germany of Jews. Bibi's doing more thinly veiled genocidal messaging, framing it as might is right and self-defense, which is a lot more sympathetic to Western audiences. No, I think there are plenty of people who have written Hitlerian-style anti-Arab sentiment or have said it, right? I mean, Smotrich's like final solution. Ben Shapiro has written a Hitler-style argument about what to do with the Palestinians, called "Transfer is not a dirty word." I think that there are plenty of Israeli officials that have said Hitlerian things about Palestinians. The difference is, in my opinion, that it is still, we have the capability of hiding that rhetoric under national security concerns, because America has said Hitlerian things about Arabs and Palestinians, or not Palestinians, but like Muslims in general. So if you got Nazi light, on the one hand, you have, Nazi extra on the other. Yeah, the population of like Nazi extra is going to look at Nazi light and go, okay, well, I do get where they're coming from, I think. But I don't think that it's like, I do not think that it's a mere, like, states do not operate with like a single guy, with the interest of a single guy in mind. I think that states behave in a way that maximizes their material interests, and that's precisely the reason why Israel can get away with behaving in the way that it is and has for a very long time, because it also ends up it is aligned perfectly with America's state interests. Like, Israel is a state. And by that, I don't mean it's a nation state. I mean, it's like a state. It's a part of the United States of America. The quicker you recognize that, it's a state with no extradition policy to the United States of America, but it's a state. And not like a shitty state. It's not like Montana, okay? It's a good state. It's like an important state. It's like California or Texas or New York, okay? It's important. But yeah, Mearsheimer, my criticism here is that, yes, he has a liberal tunnel vision on lobbies that does not recognize the lobby as a symptom of the broader structure, i.e. capitalist world economy. And I think that, no, I ran the top of the hour break. I think that Mearsheimer is putting the cart before the horse almost, where it's not the lobby that makes America so pro-Israel. The lobby can operate in the way that it does because America is pro-Israel. Montana is a good state law. Okay, guys, I'm joking. Okay, Mississippi. Fucking Mississippi. Is that better?
Due in large part to the lobby's influence. That is not an argument that people in the lobby want to hear. People in the lobby understand that if you have an open discourse, Israel will end up looking very bad, right? You don't want to talk about the occupation. You don't want to talk about how Israel was created, right? Represents a massacre. I would use that term. I think what the Israelis are doing in Gaza represents a massacre. I would use that term, given the number of civilians that they've killed and the fact that they've been indiscriminate in terms of how they've been bombing Gaza. And I believe that's to be condemned, the killing of civilians. This is not legitimate collateral damage. They're directly punishing the population.
So you're saying there's some degree of punishment, of collective
they're
anger.
Purposely killing civilians. This is the iron wall. They're trying to beat the Palestinians into submission, right? There's no way you kill this many civilians if you're trying to precisely take out Hamas fighters. And by the way, the Israeli spokesman, the IDF spokesman.
Yeah, John Mearsheimer is a bit of a lib on this. I mean, he is a lib. He's a right-wing guy, for the record. He's not my ideological ally by any means. He is, however, because of his worldview, because of his worldview as a conservative, because of the way he operates, he has been more realistic about what will happen in Ukraine, for example, like even all the way back in like 2015.
Has explicitly said that we are not pursuing precision bombing, and that what we are doing is trying to, maximize the amount of destruction and damage that we can inflict on the Palestinians. And I think this is a major mistake on the part of Israel.
What? How the fuck can you say it doesn't start with the lobby? The lobby literally buys the puppets that America want to support. Americans don't think for themselves. What? Brother, you're fucking ridiculous if you think there's like a puppet master. No, it goes in the other direction. Israel has been able to present itself as a really valuable key ally for America's foreign policy interests in the region for a very long time. Okay? There is no puppet master in the situation. America says jump, Israel says how high. Okay? This is like weirdly anti-Semitic. I hope you understand that. The reason why Israel can operate this way and align itself, with America, like, is specifically because Israel's position, Israel operating like an American forward operating base in a resource-rich region that we want to ensure we can control, is because of the strategic positioning of Israel and because of Israel's strategic enemies in the region.
First of all, it ends up being a moral stain on your reputation, number one. And number two, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. The Palestinians are not going to roll over and submit to Israeli domination of their life. So, the whole concept of the Iron Wall, Jabotinsky's term, was misguided. And by the way, if you look at what the Israelis are doing, they're trying to do two things. One is the Iron Wall, and that's where you punish the civilian population in Gaza and get them to submit. The other thing that they're trying to do is get Hamas. They want to destroy Hamas. And the belief there is that if they destroy Hamas, they've solved the problem. But as many Israelis know, including people on the hard right, even if you destroy Hamas, they are going to be replaced by another group.
I think a lot of Americans need to fucking recognize that, like, you're like, oh, Israel is small bean, but also doing its own thing and being really fucking brutal and really violent without America's go-ahead are wrong. Okay? No. Israel has been able to fucking build settlements rapidly expanding in the West Bank for the past 3 decades with America's money. Israel has been able to do that because America actually does not care what happens to the Palestinians. It is in their best interest to allow Israel to behave in the way that they do. Now, obviously, there are times when they have to rein Israel in, right? There are times when you have to rail Israel in because, like, you fear a larger conflict breaking out in the region. And America will do that when it's bad PR, when it ends up, when the bad PR gets too out of hand. What is this? So if you hate America so much, why don't you go back to chicken or turkey or wherever the fuck you came from? Hashtag let Hasan come. I really shouldn't have said that. No, you shouldn't have. I mean, he's baiting. I'm not going to fucking ban him for saying that. XQC's reacting to you. Kisses for him.
Group. Another resistance group.
God, my mouth is so fucking on fire.
Or the
still.
section of the book where we talk about this.
Okay, I kind of want to watch this whole thing. God damn it. I can't believe this. I can't believe I'm saying this, but fuck me. I'm going to listen to John Mearsheimer on Hamas-Israel war.
Driving force. A lot of people hypothesize that this attack was due to the
Fuck
fact that the Israelis, the Saudis, and the Americans were working together to foster another Abraham Accord, and that the Palestinians would in effect be sold down the river. I think
it feels really weird to agree with a guy like this. Why? There are plenty of instances where you have a dude who's like sane enough. Bro, it's literally like agreeing with, okay? Like, that's why I was talking about the difference between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton still understands the negative consequences of letting Israel do whatever the fuck it wants, so will always try to rein it in. Hillary Clinton is also a neocon in many respects. The difference is there are permissible acts of violence that Israel engages in on a regular basis. Yeah, and also this is important to recognize as well, and this goes along with what Hillary Clinton, I suspect, would have done in a situation like this, is that chatter should know that Mearsheimer is saying this is not because of any love for Palestinians, but because it will end up backfiring majorly for America. It diminishes America's influence. Okay? It diminishes America's influence. So even from a liberal perspective, what Joe Biden is doing right now is stupid. Even if your goal is to reinstitute America's hegemonic power and influence over the region, influence over the entire world, you're signaling to the third world and other developing nations that you do not have control over your literal fucking vassal state. Okay? That your vassal state is like a pit bull, attacking and clamping on and not releasing. It undermines your own influence that you have amongst your allies. Okay? So even from that point of view, I think that there are more sane foreign policy experts within the Biden administration and more sane foreign policy experts with, even if it was like the Hillary Clinton administration, that would have operated very differently in this circumstance. I don't even think Barack Obama, as cucked as he was, would have allowed this incursion to continue, allow this siege to continue in the way that it has. And I know that for a fact because there has never been this level of violence in such a short period of time. There's never been a situation where a leadership in America has said, we have no red lines for Israel. Okay? This does not mean that previous administrations have been pro-Palestinian by any means. None of them have. Okay? But you will see in the upcoming months more national security apparatus individuals, members, not like Mearsheimer, who is a totally different guy regardless, but you are going to see more and more people say, dude, fucking dial it back. What the fuck are you doing? Okay? You have to rein Israel in. What the fuck are you doing is going to be the common consensus here. Biden's LBJ moment for this reason. Because the reality is, you cannot let Israel do whatever the fuck it wants to the Palestinians. You can't. In order for there to be at least the presence of a rule-based international order that you supposedly are the defender of, you have to at least, in certain respects, like you cannot allow your vassal state to break the rules in a way that is more flagrant than the way you break the rules, okay? Israel has broken the rules worse than America now. That's crazy. That's not a thing. You can't do that. The big dogs, America, they can break the fucking rules in that regard, okay? Israel cannot. And Israel is currently doing that. That's insane. Not sure about this? No, I'm telling you. The only country in the rule-based international order that can kill without any kind of scrutiny to this degree, like engage in this level of collective punishment, is the United States of America. And if you look at the actual civilian per enemy combatant casualty numbers, I'm not even kidding. Israel is currently beating out the United States of America. You say China and Russia, neither have come close. That's crazy. I'm extremely critical, and I mean, fuck Russia, and I'm critical of China too. None of them have come close. What do you mean China and Russia? I don't know why I said
Given
not
the
sure about
fact that this was in the planning stages for probably about 2 years, and the Abraham Accords with regard to Saudi Arabia are a relatively new phenomenon. I don't think that's the main driving force here. I think
I could have sworn Iraq was way more. No, the immediate, in the bombing campaigns that happened in the first month of Iraq, the Iraq civilian casualty toll versus enemy combatant toll in the shock and awe campaign was still not as bad as Israel's last month and a half. And what I'm saying is, like, America is allowed to do that because they are the genocidal fucking leader of the world. They can do whatever the fuck they want. You know who's not allowed to do that? America's vassal state. You can't do that. With the same speed and same intensity that Israel is engaged in Gaza, and even with the dynamics of Gaza, because like in Iraq, yeah, I'm talking about the rate of killing per time, and also the rate of killing civilians adjusted to the enemy combatant population that you've killed, adjusted to time. I mean, you're acting like you really believe America will hurt from this? Of course it will. I think this genuinely spells trouble for America's influence waning around the world. I think people see that. People say that about, like, Russia and Ukraine, okay? But America's actions in Ukraine is like basic American politics, okay? Proxy war with a foreign adversary, use a percentage of your military budget, throw a bunch of fucking lives on the line, don't allow for any kind of fucking negotiations process to take root until, like, the nation state's own combatant population numbers have diminished, right? There's like a genocide math there. Your military industrial complex makes money. That happens. That's normal American policy. America's actions in Ukraine are not actually any different than America's actions elsewhere. Maybe it's a little bit more in your face, and it was sold to you in the media in the way that you usually don't get to see these sorts of incursions or these sorts of proxy wars or whatever. However, Israel is a whole different story.
Main driving force is that the Palestinians feel oppressed.
Isn't Israel worse than Russia and Ukraine total anyways? No, not in totality. No. I mean, they've killed more civilians, I believe, or they killed more children so far, I think. But no, not in totality. The Russian war has been, the Russian invasion has been going on for longer. So I think the number is like 500,000 at this point, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know the exact number, but no. It's the rate of the violence in such a short period of time and who the targets are that make this different. Still spreading premature news, Hasan? Dude, I love when dummies come in and, like, they want to do the classic meme stuff so they can, like, clip it and be like, lol, I got him. But they're too stupid to, like, repeat the talking point correctly. So they say premature news. I love you, chatter. Never change.
As they should, and that this was a resistance move. They were resisting the Israeli occupation.
So that resistance, the attack involved killing a large number of Israeli civilians. There's many questions to ask there, but one is, do you think Hamas fully understood what the retaliation will involve from Israel into Gaza?
They had to understand. I mean, you had, Operation Cast Lead in 2008, 2009. It started, I think, right after Christmas 2008.
Lex is not pro-Palestine,
it ended
bro.
right before President Obama took office in January 2009. And the Israelis periodically do what they call mowing the lawn, where they go into Gaza and they pound the Palestinians to remind them that they're not supposed to rise up and cause any problem. So there's no question in my mind that the Hamas forces understood full well that the Israelis would retaliate, and they would retaliate in force, as they have done.
Yeah, even the metaphor of mowing the lawn is disturbing to me in many ways. I actually saw Norman Finkelstein, I think, say that, well, then if you use that metaphor, then you could say that Hamas was...
I'm not gonna lie, boys. I mean, I may be a fucking dumbass himbo, but a lot smarter people say exactly the same shit I've been saying. I don't know. A lot better read people, a lot smarter people. They are just simply, I don't know. They're saying a lot of the same things. Who knows? Don't trust me. Trust these guys, though. They're smart. They're definitely smarter.
And it's such a horrific image because the result on either side is just the death of civilians. I mean, let me ask you about the death of civilians. So during the attack, 1,400 Israelis were killed. Over 240 were taken hostage. And then in response, as we sit today, Israel's military response has killed over 10,000 people in Gaza. And given the nature of the demographics, it's a very heavily young population. Over 40% of them are under the age of 18 of those killed. That's, of course, according to Ministry of Health of Palestinian Authority. So what do you think is the long-term effect on the prospect of peace when so many civilians die?
I mean, I think it's disastrous. I mean, the only way you're going to get peace here is if you have a two-state solution, where the Palestinians have a sovereign state of their own and there is a sovereign Jewish state. And these two states live side by side. American presidents since Jimmy Carter have understood this full well, and this is why we have pushed very hard for two-state solution. Indeed, many American Jews and many Israelis have pushed for a two-state solution because they think that that is the only way you're going to get peace between the two sides. But what's happened here is that in recent years, the Israelis have...
Why is it a two-state a bad idea? Eli 5, explain like I'm 5. You know what's really funny about that? I'm almost certain he's about to explain it to you, okay? The two-state solution is dangled in front of the Palestinians and the Israelis, really, like the peaceniks in Israel, as a carrot, as a mechanism to consistently continue to expand rapidly in the West Bank with settlements. Okay, that's what he's going to say, because that is the truth, by the way. There is no, I'm not pre-watching. This is just like, there's not a lot of consensus in the field of academia when it comes to these kinds of social sciences. But the reality is that this is damn near close to a consensus that you can arrive at if you have read into this at all, a little bit, okay? A little bit. Most people that defend the two-state solution either are doing it, not most people are doing it cynically, sorry. People that are defending the two-state solution, if they're Israeli politicians, especially Israeli politicians that are like Likud or right-wing, they're doing it cynically. A lot of people that defend the two-state solution, myself at a certain point in time, Avi Shleim is an academic, is an Israeli scholar who used to be a two-stater. I think Ilan Pape wasn't, but regardless, like there are a lot of people who were two-state solutioners from the jump and have changed their perspective over the years, myself included, because every one of us ultimately recognized that this was untenable. It was completely untenable, and that it was simply a way for the Israeli governments over the course of multiple decades to expand rapidly in the West Bank and partition off the occupied territory and shut off Palestinians from ever having a nation state in the West Bank that has contiguity. You suck at explaining to kids? What? If Palestine were a cake, Israel took two-thirds of it, and what is left is literally crumbs, not actually a piece. Okay, that's better. You're right. I doubt a 5-year-old would understand that. I don't know how to fucking explain to a 5-year-old anything, man. What the fuck? And none of you are 5. Some of you are like 35 years old. What do you mean, dude? How many 5-year-olds are in the fucking chat? Like, what the fuck? Hello?
Lost all interest in a two-state solution. And it's in large part because the political center of gravity in Israel has steadily moved to the right. When I was a young boy, the political center of gravity in Israel was much further to the left than it is today. And it is in it is in a position now, the political center of gravity, where there's hardly any support for a two-state solution. And Netanyahu and the rest of the people in his government were in favor or are in favor of a greater Israel. There's just no question about that. Well, on top of that, you now have had a war where, as you described, huge numbers of civilians have been killed. And you already had bad blood between the Palestinians and the Israelis before this conflict. And you can imagine how people on each side now feel about people on the other side. So even if you didn't have this opposition inside Israel to a two-state solution, how could you possibly get the Israelis now to agree to a two-state solution? I think for the foreseeable future, the animosity inside Israel towards the Palestinians is so great that it is impossible to move the Israelis in that direction.
Palestinians are also coming at it from a framework of being consistently victimized, but possibly because of that, they literally recognize the great power that Israel presents, which is why when you look at the actual studies, when you look at the actual polls, like that are conducted internally within Palestine all the time amongst Palestinian populations, usually the consistent narrative is like they are way, way more favorable to a peaceable solution, and also on top of that, way more open-minded, regardless of who they voted for, regardless of like whatever the fuck they've said consistently. Time and time again, polls show that like even after all is said and done, they're still willing to have some semblance of hope because they know that they have no other options. Whereas on the Israeli side, I would say it's much, much more violent because they recognize that they have the capacity to eradicate all Palestinians if they wanted to, which is true. They could. They could do that. And they consider it to be great. An incredible amount of restraint that they do not, and that the Palestinians should be grateful for it. You know?
And the Israelis here are the key players, more so than the Palestinians, because it's the Israelis who control Greater Israel. It's the Israelis who you have to convince. Now, I want to be clear here. You also ultimately have to get around the fact that Hamas, right, is not committed to a two-state solution. But I think that problem could be dealt with. It's important to understand that Arafat and the PLO was once adamantly opposed to a two-state solution, but Arafat came around to understand that that was really the only hope for settling this. And he became a proponent of a two-state solution. And that's true of Mahmoud Abbas, who runs the PA in the West Bank. It's not true of Hamas at this point in time. They want a one-state solution. They want a Palestinian state. And of course, the Israelis want a one-state solution too, which is a Jewish state that controls all of Greater Israel. So the question is, can you get some sort of agreement? And I think to get to the nub of your question, given what's just happened, it's almost impossible to imagine that happening anytime soon.
The cynical perspective here is that those in power benefit from conflict, while the people on both sides suffer. Is there a degree of truth to that? Or for the people in power to maintain power, conflict needs to continue?
No, I don't believe that. I mean, just to take the Netanyahu government or any Israeli government that maintains the occupation. What you want is you want a Palestinian population that submits to Israeli domination of Greater Israel. You don't want resistance. You don't want an intifada. You don't want what happened on October 7th. In fact, I think one of the principal reasons that the Israeli—
Why don't they want a one-state plurality, i.e. one state but no apartheid? What do you mean? Why would they want that? They, like, Israelis have been ingratiated with, like, anti-Palestinian narratives from the jump. Israelis believe in anti-Palestinian narratives as a, like, because those are a necessity in order to, those are an absolute necessity in order to fucking justify an apartheid regime. So ingrained, not ingratiated, sorry. They have been taught that Palestinians represent a true demographic threat to the nation state of Israel maintaining its Jewish majority. Now, of course, because we do not live in the 17th century or 18th century or 19th century, as a matter of fact, inculcated, not ingratiated. Okay, thank you. We look at that and we go, those demographic concerns are fucking insane. They are racist and fucking insane. Because normal people, at least even liberals in the modern world, have been conditioned due to CRT and woke ideology that it's bad to think that some members of a group or a subgroup in a population is actually all monolithic and violent and barbaric and bloodthirsty. That's it. You can't make this argument. You fucking shouldn't be able to make this argument in liberal society because, like, in polite society, in civil society, this is not an argument you can make. Most people go, that's racist as fuck, dog. What do you mean? That's crazy. Substitute the words Jewish in the Israeli charter or in the Israeli, I guess, constitution, which is like piecemeal, not like a fully formed, fully fleshed out thing, but substitute the word Jewish with white, and you recognize how fucking insane that is. Because remember, it doesn't say Israeli, it says Jew. There are Palestinians living inside of Israel right now, Palestinian citizens of Israel that are not Jewish. Okay? Fuck it. Don't say white Christian. That's still that's like not acceptable. Secularism is at the heart of liberal democracies.
These are pounding.
There are literally above 1 million Muslims living in Israel. That's what I'm saying, bro. What do you mean? And yet the Israeli constitution now dictates that Israel is, since 2018, a nation state for Jews. Hello? You think that's appropriate? The fuck do you mean? Imagine America being like, we are a Christian nation, specifically for the white Christian population. Like, can you imagine? That's crazy. They do say that in America, but imagine, like, codifying it to that fucking degree and then acting out on those desires. We have done that in the past, and we look to those moments with great shame, right? Some people don't because they're racist pieces of shit, but we at least all know in polite society that those guys are fucking assholes, right? What are we doing? But the very same liberals in America that recognize how psychotic right-wing weirdos are turn around and forget all of that when it comes to Israel. Aren't Mizrahi Jews also mistreated? Not necessarily. No, I mean, historically maybe, but I don't think in contemporary Israel. They might in the future. Probably not, though. They are the most ride or die ones. They're the most, like, right-wing ones. For the most part. Yair Lapid, centrist opposition to Netanyahu on banning Palestinian spouses. There's no need to shirk for the essence of this law. It is one of the tools to ensure a Jewish majority in Israel, which is the nation state of Jewish people. Our goal is for there to be a Jewish majority. Why is XG fucking DMing me to debate him? What the fuck is he trying to... He's trying to talk about Pokemon cookies, dude. I'm talking about Israel, dog. I don't know if he wants to talk about Israel or if he wants to talk about Pokemon cookies. What the fuck? That's my debate. It's crazy. Dude, in the midst of an ethnic cleansing campaign happening, the guy who's like famous for fucking constantly joking about how his opposition are broke boys, who like flexes his fucking I got your house on my wrist guy, is gonna get mad at Pokimane for saying broke boys. That's crazy. That's crazy. And inherently shows the flaw in the way that people analyze the situation, or basically proves the position that I have, which is it's fucking cool when my favorite content creator does that kind of thing because I can be charitable to him. I can understand that he's joking. It's not cool if I don't like the content creator, and I will take it seriously, and I will act like they are fucking hating on poor people across the board.
In Gaza and killing huge numbers of civilians, punishing the civilian population in ways that clearly violate the laws of war, is because they want the Palestinians to understand that they are not allowed to rise up and resist the occupation. That's their goal. So I think the Israelis would prefer that the Palestinians roll over and accept submission. In terms of the people who live in Gaza, to include the elites, and the people who live in the West Bank, to include the elites, they would much prefer to move to some sort of situation where the Palestinians have a state of their own. I think in the case of the PA, under Abbas, they would accept a two-state solution. I think what at this point in time Hamas wants is a one-state solution, but they want peace. All of them want peace.
Yeah, you can't say, like, I mean, when you say stuff like that, people go fucking crazy, but it's correct. It's correct. He's right.
When you have a disaster